Good morning, CSL Greater Boston. I am Reverend Ed Tansey, one of the senior ministers here at this wonderful community of love. And I welcome our congregants here this morning and also welcome our live stream viewers to our Sunday morning talk. Coming from beautiful Cambridge, Massachusetts. And yes, thank you. Yes, beautiful Cambridge. Come and visit sometime. So your continued support of this live stream ministry is greatly appreciated. And you can go to our website, cslboston.com, and click on the donate button, which is found at the bottom left of the page. Oh, .org, excuse me. Rev G handles all of the technical stuff. Okay, so now that that is done, our theme for Centers for Spiritual Living in 2017 is values-based living. Oh. And this month's theme is transformation and evolution. Okay? Now, there it is. Our topic this week, the science of the absolute. The science of the absolute. The clicker went a little clicky crazy there for a moment. Okay, so many times here at the center, you've heard us say, go within, do your work, go deeper. And here is what we mean, and here is what happens when you do something like that. When one goes deeper within, they're doing their own personal work. And this personal work really is dealing with self-discovery. Self-discovery and healing to reveal the greater truth of our own divinity, our own wholeness, our own perfection, our own strength, and our own freedom. You are going deeper and realizing more and more about yourselves. Isn't that not true?
Yeah.
It is. Isn't it great what you're realizing, how magnificent each and every one of you are? It's a wonderful thing to know who and whose we are. We're going deeper, deeper within, and doing this personal work. You're dealing with your consciousness, really. You're dealing with your consciousness. And we're all dealing at different levels of consciousness, depending where we're at on our spiritual path. So I believe that the more that we reveal the greater truths of ourselves, what we're actually doing is revealing the truth of God. And if you don't like that word, our higher power, the infinite energy, the thing itself, the name of that higher vibration doesn't matter as long as you realize its presence. That is what matters, to know the truth of the divine. Now remember, the nature of God, the nature of spirit, and the nature of all humans is one thing. It's all one of the same. We are made in the same image and likeness of the divine, of God. That's what we're made from. We are made of its essence, the essence of God. So, God is considered the macrocosm, and we're unique expressions individually of the divine. We're each expressing the way we know our higher power. And we are considered the microcosm of the macrocosm. So what is true of that higher power, that God, that infinite energy, is true of us. We are the microcosm of the macrocosm. Are you following? Does that make sense? Okay, so when one does their personal work, it leads that person into an awareness of the nature of the universe and their relationship with that. Your relationship with that. And this is where I feel a person becomes aware of our core beliefs, the core beliefs of the science of mind. We realize our presence, we realize our mind, we realize our intelligence, we realize our power. I love that word. We realize the power that comes from within each and every one of us. We realize the one God, the one life. And that's when we realize that really God is all there is. And we're vessels for that expression of it. So each and every one of us can use this power. We can use this power, here's the catch, only to the extent that we recognize it and align ourselves with this truth and with its presence. And I further believe all of this leads to the higher consciousness of oneness. Oneness with the universe, oneness with God, and oneness with each other. Oneness with each other. We are all interconnected. We are all one of the same, just showing up so beautifully unique and diverse. If I look into our congregation, your beautiful faces, I see all colors of blouses and shirts and trousers, and anyone wearing skirts, I see. It's all beautifully recognized and represented. You know, from this oneness, it helps us, I believe, put together and apply all of the knowledge that we do gain from when we go within, that we do gain from doing our personal work. And from this, it brings a heightened awareness. It brings a focus, a higher consciousness. And that through this unity that I talked about, we all realize that each of us are more than this physical appearance that is present. We are more than this physicalness, what we see in manifest form, that we see here in life, this vibration of life, this frequency of life. Now, earlier I mentioned about working on our consciousness, right? Well, let's click in here. Here's a quote I found that I want to read to you. Aha. It came from Love and Law. Every living soul is a point of personified God consciousness, immutable, allness, power, now. You are not, I love this one, you are not approaching the point of God consciousness, but you are that now. You are that now. Fearlessly announce that you are the truth and nothing but the truth. Know that within you now dwells the eternal God, for all the presence, all the power, and all the God that there is with you and in you now.
Yeah.
Woo! Now that to me makes me feel real good. This makes me want to get out and want to strut my stuff knowing I am all power, I am all good. I am made of the essence of the divine. That really fills my cup beautifully. Does it fill your cup?
Yes.
Thank you. So it's such a powerful statement that each of us, we're a point of this personified God consciousness. And the fact that we're not approaching it, that we are it now, gets me high on life, knowing this stuff. It really, really does. And it even gets better. Realizing that the power is in you and that you can use it so that you're able to and can create a life, here it is, where you can live wholeheartedly, where you can experience the blissfulness of life. And you know why? Because each and every one of us, we are the essence of the divine, and we show it in our beautiful, unique ways. Now, we talk about the essence of the divine. So I thought it would be nice, oh, pretty, let's hope this one works now. I thought this would be nice just to have a quick review of the essence and nature of God. Love, joy, peace, perfection, abundance, prosperity, wholeness, intelligence, beauty, creativity, compassion, and harmony. So each one of these words that I use to describe the essence are the same words that I can use to describe each and every one of you here in this sanctuary this morning, each and every one of the viewers out there, and each and every individual throughout the cosmos. We are made of the same essence as the divine. So when we live from this truth, the truth of our being, I really believe we have it made. Mm-hmm. I feel that. I feel I have it made. I can do anything. I can do anything. Breathe that in. You can do anything you so desire. Because remember, there's freedom that this gives you. You are free to pluck from the energy field all of the infinite possibilities that are out there for each of us to just pluck and take and experience. The only way that that doesn't happen, the only way that gets dammed up, is because of us. When we don't realize our oneness, when we don't realize we're made of the same God essence, that's where the block comes. So it's very important to remain in alignment, knowing who and whose we are. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. There's another slide I want to show you. I want to read this to you. This came from an experiment with faith by Ernest Holmes, paragraph 2. When God put us here, he made each one of us a little different. And if each one of us is just a little different, as though each one were a new mold, then the greatest adventure of life would be an experiment with ourselves to see what we could do with this thing inside of us. So when we come from this God consciousness, and when we come from that understanding of this unity with the divine and knowing our power, I say to each and every one of you, go and experiment with life. Use life as a big experiment. Be courageous. Step out of that box that you might put yourself in. Do the things you usually wouldn't do. Reach out for all of the infinite possibilities that I've mentioned that are there. Remember, you have the ability to experience life in all of its magnificence, because that is the will of God for everyone. That is the will of God for everyone. To live that blissful life in all of its magnificence. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think our batteries running low on the microphone.
In the clicker. Under there.
Thank you. So, sometimes, when we have not yet realized our oneness and magnificence, we show up as one of these guys. The jerks. You know, God's having fun here making the, I love this picture. It's one of my favorites. I love Larson Farside. You know, you got all these different things here. You got krill and birds, and medium-skinned people, light-skinned people, and he said, just to make it interesting, a few jerks, right? And so when we're not showing up in our magnificence, we're those guys right there.
No joke.
And we've been there, right? Anybody? No.
Yeah.
Not here. No, none of us here. So why is it important that we show up as our authentic and divine selves? Why is that? Why is that important? Is it because our lives are better when we do?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Right? So what I did is I wanted to look up, because here we're talking about the science of the absolute. And so I looked it up in the glossary of the science of mind. And here's what Ernest Holmes has to say about that. The unconditioned, that which nothing can limit, that which forever transcends any conceivable limitation or determination, unconditioned perfection, self-existent, self-sufficient, often used as a synonym for God. Truth is absolute and remains unaffected by the opinions, desires, and beliefs of men. That's from the Science of Mind glossary. The absolute. So we're talking about the absolute. We're talking about an unconditioned energy. That is what we are using. It doesn't have anything conditioning it. So it's really important to realize that. Now, Ernest Holmes further says, so Ernest Holmes further says that science is absolute knowledge insofar as the facts of science are demonstratable. That true? Right? And he further says that science is the knowledge of facts based upon some proven principle.
Okay.
So what we're talking about here is a proven principle. The science of the absolute is a proven principle, and it's a principle we can prove over and over again in our life. Has anybody done that? Yes. We screw it up every so often, right? I think that's just human nature. We just tend to do that. So this is precisely what we're talking about, and it is a proven principle. It is reliable. It works the same every time. Sometimes we're the ones who get in the way of how it works, right? So that brings us to this slide here. And so when we are in alignment with the universe, it always works to prove us right. On the other hand, when we are out of alignment with the universe, it also proves us right. Right? When we get into that place of all the negatives swirling around in our heads, we get that. Right? Because the universe doesn't know the difference. We do, but the universe doesn't. You doing that back there, Paul?
I'm practicing.
You're practicing. No, do this one. This one. Yeah, there we go. We have too much fun here. Okay. So the wonderful thing is that we can use the principles to transform the undesirable effects in our lives. And that's the beauty of it. Once we know the principles, we can then start to use them on a regular basis and clean up all the junk that we tend to have built up over the years. Anybody have any junk there? Yeah. A little bit. Yeah. So we can release that. And so how do we do that? How do we get that principle down? How do we connect with that principle? How do we do that here?
Spiritual mind.
Spiritual practices, right? Affirmations, things like that. So it's really important that we do that. So in my early days in metaphysics, I used affirmations a lot. I had an affirmation that I used on a regular basis. And for me, it was really important that I used this. It was at a time in my life when I was trying to better prove, for whatever reason, there it goes. It seems to be on a delayed cycle. So I used this affirmation. It was to bring abundance into my life, but it was more than just financial abundance. Because at that time in my life, I had, it was after I had bought my first house, and I was into my second house, and by then I was starting to experience some financial situations. Ann and I were blessed to see the musical Rent yesterday afternoon. And I had never seen the musical before, and it's from a very strong time in my life. As you know, I have lost 2 partners in my life, both of them to HIV. And so it is a powerful story all about that. And then I found out the one who wrote the musical actually made his transition before they actually produced it on Broadway. So, but it was a very powerful thing. But it woke me up to realize that it's like in that time, I mean, this was a time when my partner Jose was in my life, and we were bringing his family from Nicaragua. And I became a brother-in-law to his sister. Well, actually, by law, I was actually legally married to her. And I brought his niece. So I became a stepfather, in a way. And I was very blessed with having that family come into my life. But after they got here, he made his transition. So I was left to raise a family. So after a period of time, it took about 2 or 3 years to get them on their feet. You know, his sister had never even ridden a bicycle, and I had to teach her how to drive at 40. So it was a huge thing, and helping a young girl to learn how to speak English and become, an active member of our communities. And it was a huge blessing in my life, but it was also a financial draw, and it left me in sort of a financial position. So what I did is I created this affirmation. Oops. Oh, it already came up. Okay, so God is my instant, constant, abundant source of unlimited supply, and I accept that supply as it pours freely into my life through many channels. See how broad that is and how open that is? It's allowing for a lot of divinity to come in. So I had been doing this affirmation for quite a while because I was fairly new into metaphysics, and affirmations were the thing at that time that I was working with. And what happened is that after about 2 or 3 years, and I was starting to feel the concerns of financial burden, I was paying attention to what was going on in my neighborhood. And I noticed that houses were selling for much larger prices than what I had paid. So I decided that I would take that chance. Now, I had bought the house at $125,000. I had done some other work on it, fixed the pool and things like that. But when I sold the house, I sold it for $275,000. And I paid off all of my bills, and I freed myself just doing this. Now, this morphed. This had things that changed at the end of it to bring forth even more into my life, because you can do that with an affirmation. It changes as you go along. And what happened is I got enough money that I still had an abundance, and I could reinvest in another house. And so I wanted to take advantage of the market, which was very bullish at that time in Palm Springs, California. So I bought a house, which I almost lost. But I refused to accept that loss. I went to a practitioner at the Center for Spiritual Living in Palm Springs, and I said, this is what's happening. I don't want to lose this house. I want to get this. I need a prayer. And it was interesting because, first of all, the practitioner I went to was a real estate agent. So he's like going, wait a minute, they can't do that, but wait a minute, no, I want to get my practitioner hat on. He was so cute. So he gets his practitioner hat on, he says, because we're going to pray from the absolute, the science of the absolute, what we're talking about. And so he does this amazing and wonderful prayer, and he completes it. And then he says, now I'm going to switch hats and give you a little advice. And so he gave me the advice. So the answered prayer was like right there, instantaneous, right? That I just happened to go to somebody and I didn't know he was a real estate agent, but that was what it was. So he prayed for me and he gave me all that I needed to know, and I got this next house. And I took the time to fix it all up, really do a lot of work on it, clean it up, make it really nice. And I turned around in about probably 8 months to a year, and I sold that house for the highest price that neighborhood had ever had a house sold. And that is what brought me to New England. Ed and I came to New England. We were looking for a home, and we wanted a second home. You know, we were going to be bi-coastal, right? Well, that didn't work. Because Spirit had a whole other idea. But it was that idea and so what happened is we ended up buying this house in Rhode Island, and now we're here. And when the market tanked, which it did, we were still in a good position because of the amount of money that I had to put down on our house. So it was a blessing. So this is the whole thing of this test working out the science of the absolute. And some of it's spiritual mind treatment. We can all use something different, but for me, I thought the affirmation story was a way to really bring it home, because affirmation's how we shift our mind. Affirmation is how we get out of those old channels that don't serve us anymore. So that's a real important thing. And so this is what came to me. It was interesting because I actually rewrote the talk about 4 o'clock this morning because I was like going, no, I need to say something different. But this I had seen earlier in the week, and this quote from Ernest Holmes I think is really powerful because it's talking about how we use the science of the absolute. There is no process in healing. Now that sounds kind of crazy, doesn't it? We always talk about healing in our teaching, right? But there's no process in healing because we're already perfect, whole, and complete. But there is generally a process in healing. Is it up?
Yeah, you said in twice.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's no process. I typed that wrong. Okay. There's no process of healing, but there is generally a process in healing. This process is the time and effort which we undergo in our realization of truth. I'd have to look it up in the science of mind. I screwed that up. I apologize for that. But the basic idea here is that we don't have to heal anything. We just have to reveal the truth. Because we're already all that the divine is. All of the things that Reverend Ed shared with us. We're already all of that. And so, if we're already all of that, we don't have to do anything except reveal the truth. And that's what our affirmations do. That's what our spiritual mind treatments do. That's what visioning does, is it brings forth those things which we need in our life. So, I'd just like to summarize, Reverend Ed spoke about the universal infinite source, substance, mother, father, God, whatever we want to call it, and that is the absolute truth. That is the absolute. That's the first cause. That's all of those terms that Ernest Holmes used. The thing itself, I love that. It's one of my favorites, the thing itself. So we already know that that is the truth. And we use this process to build into the science of the absolute to reveal amazing truth. So we use that process. Affirmation, spiritual mind treatment, all of our spiritual practices, meditation. It's all of those things that bring us to that place. So it is about our relationship to the one mind, to the infinite universal presence. Our humanity and how we are one of the divine even when life is showing up less than. Because sometimes it does show up as less than. We live in an experience of duality, of separation. And so we are always in that place of unfolding into that greater blessing by getting ourselves out of the way.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, so as we use our spiritual practices, we get ourselves into alignment with the God consciousness. Oops, sorry. The sacred clicker is working on its own. And from here we transform our lives. We transform our lives into the wholeness and perfection that is our truth. So let's join in the affirmation together. Today, the word I speak is spirit and life-giving. I am the truth and nothing but the truth. Does that feel good? So it is. And that's from Reverend Carolyn Douglas, Senior Minister in Illuminata Center for our Spiritual Center. So that is our talk, and namaste.
Namaste.
All right, so just prepare yourself for prayer.
Yeah.
Is that working?
Check.
Let's see if that's working.
This may be working, but I have a frog in my throat, so I don't know how well that part is working. But okay. So there is one absolute intelligence, one absolute supreme this room, I know that I am an individualized figure of the absolute, and the truth of my being is the same as the truth of all of us. We are all perfect, whole, and complete, and that it is our work and our ability to get to understand and know this power within that we become that perfect, whole, and complete presence within our own microcosm, our own world. Because in each of our own worlds, we are perfect, whole, and complete, abundant, prosperous, powerful. We are light and love and beauty, and we are everything that we choose, because our choosing is what God knows from us, and we are responded to according to all of our own thought process. And with this realization, I know that each one of us is the truth, and you know this truth for yourself. And with that, I give gratitude for all this awareness. It is a wonderful thing to behold. I experience great joy in knowing that for each of us. And I would like to release this to the law of mind, knowing that it is acted upon right here and right now in this place, with each of us knowing that we are the microcosm in our own world. And with that, I ask you to join in saying, and so it is.